I don't see anything. What do you think?
There's bits of bone. A piece of a horse tooth. I've always been interested in fossils. When I was a kid, I'd pick them up all the time. This is basically a release of your soul, man. This is a release of your soul. You're going back in time. And nobody says it's possible, but it is. Just simply digging up things from millions of years ago, you're actually a time traveler. And if you find an Indian artifact, that's even better because there's a human connection. And if you can pick up vibes, as you hold it in your hand, you can imagine the last time the human held it. Or you could even feel it.
A few years ago, when I was living in this horrible, decrepit building in Ottawa, Canada, I was obsessed with a record. Here Am I by Frederick Michael St. Jude. I listened to this record constantly. I could not get enough of it. It had really great songs, intriguing lyrics, an elaborate string production, and most outstanding of all, Fred's over-the-top, one-of-a-kind voice. I just loved this record, but I knew nothing about him, and there was no information to be found. He was a total mystery. Who was Frederick Michael St. Jude? What did this all mean? It would be several years until we tracked him down, and when we did, I had to know more. So here am I, in Bartow, Florida.
By the heat, you hate everyone you meet. You learn to grind your teeth. Isn't it a pity? Oh, you can't have all you see. No one lets you be. There's only you and me, left alone to die. Parting while I cry. We're not supposed to see, we're not supposed to know, you're not supposed to know about yesterday, about yesterday.
When hearing something as unique as Fred's music and those intense vocals, I couldn't help but wonder who made it and what they were like. It took a long time and a lot of luck to find him, but we had finally managed to track Fred down. So I came to Bartow to have some fun and to shoot an interview with Fred. But unfortunately, appearing on camera was not as easy as I thought it would be. I'm gonna actually take it from the top. Fuck it. Tell me when you're rolling.
I am rolling, but I want to bring.
Are you rolling?
Yes.
Okay, cut. We finally gave up on that and headed right over to Fred's place. Even though I corresponded quite a bit with him, I had no idea what our shoot would be like. Now I will find out. There's his house. Or how he's going to manage to keep my cool meeting him. Honestly, I don't think I did that great a job of it.
Thank you. Oh my God, Craig. As they say in Savannah, what can I get you to drink?
And with those magic words, Fred welcomed us into his home. Cheers.
Cheers.
Gregg?
Oh, cheers. Thank you, sir.
There was so much to look at. Fred's home was full of beautifully displayed fossils, artifacts, books, and art reflecting his interests in history, spirituality, fantasy, and science fiction. And all of these paintings on the wall, he did himself.
And here's the giant shark's teeth.
Are these real?
Yeah.
So these are real
Yep.
giant shark's teeth.
Yep.
And you found these?
In the river. The majority of the teeth in here are megalodon, Carcharocles megalodon, and then there are some makos in here. Baby mastodon tusks. These are 8 to 10 million years. These are 8 million.
What?
Yeah.
Soon enough, we sat down to talk about what I know him for, his music.
My father and I were watching the Beatles on Ed Sullivan on their first appearance. And I turned to my father and I said, I got to learn guitar. And my father busted out laughing. Next thing you know, Christmas comes around and there's a guitar and an amplifier under the tree. When I was with the other side, I desperately wanted to do original material. But I just didn't have the knack. But the other side, that was a big time road band. Yeah, that was a big time road band. And those boys were strictly club. Simply because they had to make a living. You know, and the only reason we did Writing on the Wall is because we had seen Terry Reid, the writer of that song, open for Cream in Philadelphia. And I was so impressed by his music. I said, we got to cover one of his tunes. Let's do that one. And so we did that one, and he sold quite a few copies. Never do the road again. Never. They needed work, they needed to make a paycheck, and that's basically all it was. They never felt like they would be stars. I never felt that I would be a star. I just knew I was different, and that I needed to do something different.
SRS International was a recording studio located in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. According to them, it was Florida's best-kept secret. The studio and in-house label, Soul Deep, were owned and run by Michelle Scott and Dave Chido, and it's where in 1977, a young Frederick Michael St. Jude would record his debut album.
When I called SRS, they said, well, why don't you bring something in and let us hear it? Well, I said, I don't have anything recorded. I said, but I'll tell you what, I am interested in cutting something, so could you please tell me your rates? So they told me the rates, and I said, okay, well, I think I can afford that. So I said, can we schedule something? She goes, well, do you need players? I said, well, let me just go ahead and cut something first, and we'll take it away, and I'm going to come up with my guitar player. So me and my guitar player got in there, and we played a couple of tunes, and I could see Michelle thinking. And I saw Dave look at her a couple times. And I said, well, that's a good sign. They're interested. So we did it. They looked at me, and Michelle said, you know, I think we want to do something. I think we want to do an album. And I said to her, well, I don't think I can afford that. All I have is $1,800. I said, how much is that going to cost? And she said, $1,800. I said, done.
So Fred, for the Hear My sessions, do you remember when you recorded your parts for the record?
We did it all at the same time except for vocals. You know, yeah, we just, the rhythm section and me, we recorded all the music.
So you were in there with the live band, like their band? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And then Dave Chido, he went in there and did keyboards and added this and that. And then they brought me in and I did the vocals.
Okay.
And after that, Michelle called me one night and said, we want you to come to the studio tomorrow and hear what we're doing. The one and only time she ever did that. I went to the studio, and all these violin and cello players were in there with a conductor.
What was going on in your mind?
And I'm going, I can't pay for this. I can't do it.
Yeah.
She goes, listen, bingo. She puts the tape on, they start rolling, and she's directing the conductor from the sound control room. And it was absolutely stunning.
Wow.
They actually had to have somebody arrange that first.
Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't believe they were doing this. I didn't think it was going to go that far.
Right.
I thought it was going to be, with the country twang, a little bit of feel, but not strings. But they did it.
And you said you'd stand by me in this hour of need. And you said you wanted me that way. Oh, and you could have wanted the world and lay it at your feet. But you didn't want a thing from me. Oh, please don't take all your love away. Please don't take all your love away. Please don't take all your love away.
And you were totally hands off on the production end of it.
Yeah, I wasn't allowed to do anything other than what I wanted to do with the vocals.
Right. Like you brought in the songs and then they took it from there. They didn't even want your opinion.
Nope.
Okay. And were you happy with the finished result? When the first time you heard the final record, were you happy with it? And what did you feel?
For the majority of it, yeah. I was stunned at the feel for a couple of them. But then, I got used to them. It's not what I heard in my head.
Right.
But, I figured, well, this is the way it is. They're going to hire a producer. He's going to come in. He's going to run the show. He's going to put on oboes if he wants. Mm-hmm. And that's the way it's going to be. So I resigned myself to it.
Right. You weren't you were kind of ready to let the songs go. You weren't that attached to them, maybe?
I wasn't bleeding for them. No.
Right. Okay. That's interesting.
You have to remember, I was 27 years old. Mm-hmm. I had a shot at some kind of success. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't ready or willing to upset the apple cart.
Okay.
I was going to go with the flow. Mm-hmm. Shall we use cliches?
Almost immediately after the release of Here Am I, Fred went right back into the studio with Michelle, Dave, and the SRS players to record a second album. An album that was never to be fully completed, and was in fact almost lost.
All they told me was, we're going to do a second album. You got the material? I said, absolutely. That was it. I figured, why not? I got more tunes. Let's go ahead and do them.
Mm-hmm. These were preliminary recordings for your second album for Soul Deep.
Mm-hmm. There's 5 or 6 layers on there. They just never got around to doing strings.
Okay. Is it the same lineup as Here Am I?
Guys. And they sound good. They don't sound bad. They're not crazy, but they're,
On a day quite like today. On a day quite like today.
The last time I saw them, I was doing that. I was doing Almost Lost. And a bunch of very well-dressed, suited men, perhaps their late 50s, early 60s, came in, completely consumed Michelle and David, interrupted the entire session, talking to Michelle and David for the longest time. But they all looked the same. They all had the same kind of suit, haircut, sideburns down to here, elderly gentlemen, suave, sophisticated, tall. They all looked like what aliens would look like. They were all the same size, same clothes, everything. They were Mormon elders.
What?
They were affiliated with the Mormon church.
Okay.
That was a scary moment because I was uneasy when they were there, and I was uneasy after they left.
Yeah.
But I had something I had to do, so I finished it and left. And that was the last time I was in that studio.
Wow. Okay.
Until I went and got the copies from Abby.
All that I wanted was a chance to sing and sing my music. All that I wanted was a chance to play my music.
And then my little voice started talking to me after I didn't hear from them for a while. And I said it had something to do with those guys. So I decided to jump in my car, went up, knocked on the door, and Abby Lincoln answers the door. That's their daughter.
Yeah.
I said, "Hi, Abby, how you doing?" She goes, "Hi, Freddie, what's going on?" I said, "You know what, Abby, I'm really anxious to hear, the music, but nobody's been able to invite me up to hear it. Is there any way you can spin me a tape?" She goes, "Sure, not a problem." So she put the 2-inch master on. And I said, "While you're at it, make me a copy, would you?" "No, not a problem." Ran me off a copy. And she goes, "Now remember, don't tell Mom and Dad." I said, "Well, I have no intention to, Abby. I thank you very much for this." And it wasn't long after they were gone. I'm just glad I got in there before they trashed it. I said to my guitar player again, Joey Crispino, brilliant. Said to him, "It's time, Joe. We got to get back in the studio, man." He went around again, found Norman, BRT Studios.
Okay.
Boom, we went up there that same day, met Norman, loved his attitude. He had a beautiful setup, and he had a 12-track Scully board. That's all he had.
12 tracks.
12 tracks.
The first thing that impressed me about Freddie was his voice. His voice was, to me, very unique. And a lot of people, they used to compare him a little bit to like Bowie or something like that. But, I looked at him as a very unusual, different stylist. And because I was recording a lot of people in South Florida at the time, and Freddie came in, it was just instantly I knew there was like something different about this guy. And he was very creative.
So I said to him, "Well, your rates are good, and I like the ambient room, and I like the band room, and your control room's right in the middle, and you can see out both sides. I think we'll record here."
Mm-hmm. We got a good relationship going very early on, and then little by little I took on more responsibilities, and then I ended up being sort of like part of the band and helping him produce it.
We went in to do "Tearing My Heart Out." So we went ahead and we went in there and we did it live. We came back in, and there was smoke coming out of Norman's ears. He was excited. He said, "Well, do you want me to lay out the bass track?" And he had a whole selection of keyboards. And he just went ahead and pulled out a Moog. And he pounded it out on that, right then and there.
Okay.
He never played it with us. He just is that much of a genius.
Yeah.
He knew the progression. He knew where he was going. We said, "It's great. It sounds great. Norman, we're going to book you next week."
And he would just sit in that room with his 12-string guitar, and he would just basically lay down the basic bottom line of the song. And that was usually the building block that we started to build the process of finishing out the song and doing overdubbing and adding things to it.
Now we got to go for the hard stuff. All right? So fortunately, there was Norman, Joey, Gary Redenti on drums, and me on acoustic 12-string. There's no reason why we couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So we went in, and I said, "I wrote this song yesterday. I was thinking of going in a different direction, but this is the direction it went in. here's the progression. I showed them the progression, and they went, oh, we got to put this at the beginning. This has got to be at the intro. And Gary's going, oh, let me do a little bit of this. Let me do the. I said, pour it on. Do we have the chords? Everybody knows where we're going? We got the intro? Let's play Gang War, the theme song. So we did it. First take.
Amazing.
Couldn't believe it.
I stand behind the thrusters of a missile that was downed in Philly when the war machines were moving 50 years ago. And the rocket's red glare was factual as the warheads rained down over Brooklyn. And a copy of a Rolling Stones record became the Bible of the street. I'm out on the street for hire. City dreams leveled by fire. If you knew then what you know now. 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 His stories and the stuff that he talked about in his lyric writing like that was always like, you never knew where he was going to be coming from. It wasn't like he always had the same idea and he was predictable. He always came up with a different slant. It was a story, it really was. What was cool about it is that he did some really great artwork too, back in the day when he did it. And then when he showed me the artwork he had been doing now for the release, I was like blown away.
You know, the funny thing about it is these people that you see with the masks on and the bulbous eyes,
Yeah.
this is how the gangs would dress.
Really?
Yeah, in the original story. They would wear masks and they would wear feathers like Indians. And they would wear armor that they put together with plastic and tin, whatever they could scavenge. This happens at a time after all of the nonsense is over. There's still record companies, there's still radio, but it's loaded with still viciousness. A lot of viciousness. Yeah, I knew this was a monster. I knew this had to go somewhere. And I took it to everybody I could possibly take it to. Back then, when we were doing Gang War, they were still doing a lot of the Casey and the Sunshine Band stuff, and disco hadn't quite died yet.
Okay.
You know, so they're only looking for the bucks. They don't care about artistic value. They want bucks.
We weren't like being influenced a lot by the what was proper at the time, I guess. Freddie was like, we have an idea, and we would follow that idea through, and we put the blinders on and just went for it.
At the time, were you disappointed? Were you frustrated? I mean, you must have been frustrated. That I imagine.
No.
No.
We went to London with it.
To try and get it out.
Yeah.
So you went to London, and I know you went to New York as well. Mm-hmm. And you're taking it everywhere, and just everywhere you went.
Nope. I did it the same thing I did with Here Am I. Put it on the shelf and wait for later.
But I mean, that must have been hard, frustrating.
I can't say it was.
Really?
No.
Yeah, I was very disappointed because I thought the record had great potential, and it sounded a lot different than the stuff that was on the market at the time, and I thought maybe somebody would see the potential in it at the time.
I'm one of those artists, I guess you could call me an artist, who believes that everything, if it doesn't work this time, maybe the next time.
Okay.
And I've often tried to promote the music over the course of those years, certain cuts, but the rejections just became insurmountable. So after a while, you put it back on the shelf and you wait for the next opportunity.
I only say that if I had something this good, I would expect something.
My little voice.
I mean, it just came a little later.
I know my wife has felt for me, but then she saw me get over it. I've heard her say every so often things like, I don't know how you can stand it. I don't know how you can deal with it. But that's over the course of 45 years. Suzanne knows me very well, and she knows that I put a lot of trust in God, and she knows that I'm a mystic, and she knows that I have Ooga Booga. And she knows that if I'm doing something, it's because I'm being directed to do it. I'm being told to do it. She doesn't like it because sometimes I end up getting extremely hurt because I'm doing what I'm being told to do. But like I said, there's always that, once it goes up in flames, there's always the extinguishing words, don't worry, it won't be wasted.
Right.
So my life is balanced that way. It's not balanced financially, but it's balanced that way.
Yeah, I had found the record 20 years ago, I think on Melrose.
Really?
In a 50-cent bin. And, it's one of those things like, I got to find this guy. And it seemed easier than some of these guys when you're tracking him down because there's like first, middle, and last name, right?
Yeah.
But it's not a real name, and it wasn't easy. And it took about pretty close to 20 years. And then somehow somebody on some message board or something referenced him in regards to his previous life with the other side. And so I think I immediately hit that person up with like, geez, this guy, tell me more. How do I get in touch?
I couldn't believe it, to tell you the truth. When George Tokarczyk, my guitar player, called me from Pennsylvania, he said, Fred, there's some guy, he found you on the internet and he wants to know where you are. Should I give him your phone number? I said, yeah, absolutely. Pardon me, at that time, I had a landline. And about, I guess it was a day later, the phone call came. Hi, you don't know me. My name is Gregg Turkington. I'm a comedian. And I'm thinking, okay, now I'm in for it. He's giving me the high sign. I said, yeah, what can I do for you, Gregg?
And we had a really pleasant conversation. And I said, do you have the tapes? Would you like to have this thing reissued? And he was amenable to it. And I took a couple of years because I think originally I was going to do it. And then when I realized that wasn't going to happen, one day I just sent a couple of MP3s of a couple of songs off that to Drag City and said, what do you guys think about this? Would you be interested? And I think it took maybe 10 seconds longer than the length of the MP3s. And they wrote back and said, yes, yes. And it was the easiest thing I've ever talked anyone into doing anywhere.
Drag City is interested. I don't know from nothing. I said, well, that sounds good. Let me talk to him. No, I'll do all the talking.
Right.
I said, absolutely, go right ahead. No, you don't want me involved. Just send me a paper that I sign. And after that, they went ahead and it was crazy. Everybody jumped in. It was absolutely, totally overwhelming. And I'm saying to myself, I was promised a long time ago by my little voice that this would not be done in vain. My little voice told me years and years ago, nothing I've done will be wasted. There it is, 35 years later.
Right.
And there's a record company interested in my very first album. And I just thought, wow, how blessed am I?
he's very humble about it too. It's like, and then I did this, and then I did this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And it never ends. It never ends with that guy. But also just like super level-headed, you know. Sometimes you find these people that did some sort of private pressing years ago, and you know, it's almost like they were expecting your call and expecting that when the call came in, that the next step was for them to sell 1 million records. You know,
I think if something is good, you know, at some point it becomes available, because people, you know, you can't deny it forever.
the rock opera Gang War that he described to me, and it just seemed like this guy's had his finger in everything.
When Freddie called me up and told me that, you know, Gang War was being picked up, and I was like, what? You know, it's like about time, you know. I mean, this is great.
And, you know, it doesn't matter to me whether it sells 50 copies or 1 million copies. Just having somebody interested in it is a pleasure. It's just a straightforward pleasure. But I have a chapter in my memoirs that I will write, but it's already been formulated, about monsters.
Real monsters?
Real human monsters. The ones that I've met during the course of my life. Joey and I went to a McDonald's up in Sunrise, Florida. We stopped in to grab a burger and a Coke. We were standing in line, and there's this guy behind me, and I smell reefer. And I turn around and look at him. He's got a light blonde mustache, one of them golden colored mustaches, sandy blonde hair, and he lit up a joint in the McDonald's.
In the McDonald's.
And he showed it to me like this, and then he went out into the playorama area for the kids, and he sat on a picnic table smoking his joint. So now at that time I was smoking reefer, and I was a little low on stash, so I decided to go out there and have a toke. Because he was inviting me, right?
Yeah.
So I walk out there, and just before I got to him, like I told you, I have that Ooga Booga.
Mm-hmm.
It said, stop. Don't go any further. Stay right where you are. And he's holding it out to me to give me a hit.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, here comes Joey at the door, and he said, Fred, what the hell you doing, man? We're next in line. Get in here.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back in. 3 or 4 years later, it may have been 5 years later, I'm watching a documentary on serial killers. And up popped a picture of somebody very familiar. Jeffrey Dahmer.
No.
Yep.
Way.
Yep. He lived in Sunrise at one time. I was totally blown away. Come with me.
Fred's output was downright staggering. The amount of work that he's produced, and in so many mediums, it's actually overwhelming.
I remember the yesterdays. Oh, they don't seem that far away. As I look back then, and I remember when his sky blue eyes were turned to stone. Most of his time was spent alone, though not even small. He searched to know it all, but what he found was nothing new. His heart was broken, it's sad but true. They don't relate to me.
Wow.
I guess I'll leave the beat. Boy, I'm not from here. Boy, I'm not from here. Boy, I'm not from here. Don't have much to say. Don't have much to say.
You just you're always creating something, and you still are.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it's amazing, just your output.
You suffer a heavy price if you don't use the gifts given to you by God. You suffer a very heavy price. And you know that because you're an entertainer.
I'm excited that you're still excited to be doing new stuff, and that you're still producing it.
Well, what else would I do, Michael? Life's too short. You know, I could be gone tomorrow.
As the streets had nurtured him, ringing
Here Am I is like the lost child to me. It's like I really appreciate it because I remember where it came from. I remember writing the songs, I remember recording the songs, and I remember the letdown. And none of that is tragic. It all meant to go somewhere, you know? Gang War, I never thought of it as my swan song. I just thought of it as a great achievement.
Fred is a guy who's interested in life, and he remains driven by curiosity in the world around him, and by a strong creative force. It was pretty mind-blowing to be around. I hope his music finds the audience that it deserves, and that the world is finally ready for it. There's so much more to Fred's story than I have told here, so much more. For instance, here is Fred acting opposite Sheena Easton in an episode of Miami Vice.
You've been married, right?
3 times.
What happened?
Well, the first time I was in a band and she was pathologically jealous of the groupies.
So yeah, there's also that. The words written on the back of his 1977 album, Here Am I, were really true. What else can you say? The man is a walking atomic power plant.
No, I have no regrets, really no frustration. I get over things pretty quick because I have hope.
I'm extremely gratified, very pleased, very blessed. No, I can't ask for any more than that.
So I'd like everybody to know out there, if you have any intention of becoming a star, stop. Just try to be you, be as successful as you possibly can. Don't try to be like the next guy. Believe me, Hollywood and the record business are full of cutthroats. All you'll suffer is loss. What you want to do is take your own road, and it's that little thin narrow road that you've heard so much about, and it is the least traveled. I've always taken the narrow road. Do so and you'll be a lot happier. The end.